Hi, FOM 10 students. We are going to jump ahead to linear functions lesson 4 today. We've done lesson 1 and lesson 2, and we're going to jump ahead to lesson 4 here. It's on slope-intercept form, and it says from last lesson we learned that lines are created by equations like y equals mx plus b, it's called. When y is by itself, or straight lines are also defined by equations that look like this: ax plus by plus c equals 0 when y is not by itself. We know that the x cannot be square rooted, fractioned, or have an exponent bigger than 1. Or else the equation creates curves. Okay, so the only way to get straight lines, guys, is by either having this form or this form. Okay, there's actually one other form called point slope form. Excuse me, for straight lines that looks like this: y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Okay, so these types of equations give us straight lines. If the y is not by itself, we can manipulate the equation to get it there. Try these, solve for y. Okay, so notice that none of these are y equals mx plus b, so you just have to get y by itself. And so since this is a positive 3x, you subtract 3x from both sides. And since this is a minus 9, you add 9 to both sides. 3x minus 3x cancels. We're left with positive 3y. Negative 9 plus 9 cancels to 0. And over here we have negative 3x plus 9. And then to get y by itself, just divide both sides by 3. So everything gets divided by 3, and y is equal to negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1, which we just write as a negative. So negative x, and then 9 divided by 3 is plus 3. In letter B here, see that's positive 5x, so we would subtract 5x from both sides. And we have negative 2y. You have to keep that sign in front. And over here we have negative 5x plus 10. Okay, I'm writing it that way because you want to have the x term first and then the constant. And then to get y by itself, divide both sides by negative 2. And we end up with negative 5 divided by negative 2 in lowest terms is 5 over 2 times x. 10 divided by negative 2 is minus 5. Y equals mx plus b. So when the y is by itself and you've got mx plus b on the other side, then you know you're finished. This one here, subtract 7x from both sides, subtract 5 from both sides. That we have negative 3y equals negative 7x minus 5. Divide everything by negative 3, and we get y equals 7 over 3 times x plus 5 over 3. Okay, so when the y is by itself, the equation is said to be in slope-intercept form. We give it the general form y equals mx plus b, where the number in front of the x, m, represents the slope, and the number behind the x, the b, represents the y-intercepts of the lines. Okay, so that's why it's called slope-intercept form. The m ends up giving you the slope of the line, and b is the y-intercept, where the line crosses the y-axis. To show that this is true, what we're going to do, guys, is graph the line below and find the x and y intercepts. Then find the slope using the equation shown there. Okay, And so we've got this y equals mx plus b, y equals negative 3x plus 9. To get the x-intercept, what you have to do is let y equal 0, and then you solve. So if I put 0 in for y, I would have negative 3x plus 9. And then, of course, what you would do is subtract 9 from both sides, and you get negative 9 equals negative 3x. And divide both sides by negative 3. And we get as our x-intercept negative 9 over negative 3, which is 3. So the x-intercept is over here at 3. For the y-intercept, you have to let x equal 0. So we would get y equals negative 3 times 0 plus 9. And we would get a y-intercept of 9. Up like that. And connect the dots, and there's our nice straight line. So this is the point 3, 0, and this is the point 0, 9. So, if we were to then go and figure out the slope, slope is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm just going to give myself a little bit more space here. Let's do this again. M equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to end up getting y2 minus y1, how about 0 minus 9? And x2 minus x1 is 3 minus 0. So our slope is equal to negative 9 over 3, which is negative 3. Okay, and if you go and look at our equation over here, notice, hey, the m, the negative 3, is the slope that we got, and the y-intercept was y equals positive 9, which is right there in the equation. Okay, and so that's what this sentence down here is going to say. It says, so the number in front of the x is negative 3, and the slope is negative 3. Also, the number behind the x is positive 9, and the y-intercept is positive 9. So that's why it's called slope-intercept form. So now you don't need to graph an equation to find its slope and y-intercept. All you need to do is have the equation in slope-intercept form. And example 1 says determine the slope and y-intercept of the following lines without graphing. Okay, so as long as it's in y equals mx plus b form, we will know that this is the slope and this is the y-intercept. Okay, and in letter A, we do have y by itself. We've got y equals mx plus b, so the slope is the 5. B, the y-intercept, is negative 2. With letter B, we have to get y by itself first. So let's subtract 6x from both sides. Let's add 10. Divide everything by 2. So y equals negative 3x plus 5. Awesome, so the slope m is negative 3, and b, the y-intercept, is positive 5. And with letter C, let's subtract 5x from both sides and add 18. We will get negative 2y equals negative 5x plus 18. Divide everything by negative 2. And we will get y equals 5 over 2 times x minus 9. So the slope is 5 over 2, and b, the y-intercept, is 9. Negative 9, sorry. Okay, so now that we know the y-intercept and the slope, we can sketch the graphs without graphing. I don't really know what that means, honestly. Sketch the graphs like without a table of values. Okay. For example, 1, sketch the equations on the grid provided below. Okay, so for example, 1, so they want us to do I'm going to write it like this, guys. I'm going to go A is the equation y equals 5x minus 2. And so the slope is 5. And B, the y-intercept, is negative 2. The slope is rise over run. And so if you don't have a fraction, 5 is secretly a fraction. It's 5 over 1. And so what you do first, guys, is you plot the y-intercept, negative 2. That's where the graph crosses the y-axis. Excuse me. And then you do the rise over run from this negative 2 y-intercept. So the rise is 5 and the run is 1. So you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up and 1 to the right. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up and 1 to the right. And that's how it will draw out the line for us. Okay, and if you want to get going back the other way, notice that the slope, you could also go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down and 1 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down and 1 to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 down and 1 to the left, and that will get you your other points this way. Okay, so that is line A. Line B I will do in red, and we figured out line B to be this, y equals negative 3x plus 5. So the m, the slope, is negative 3, b, the y-intercept, is positive 5, and this slope as a fraction is negative 3 over 1. So the y-intercept is up at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the slope says that I rise negative 3 and I run 1. So that means 1, 2, 3 down and run 1 to the right. 1, 2, 3 down, 1 to the right. 1, 2, 3 down, 1 to the right. And going back the other way, notice it's 3 up and 1 left. So from this last point, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 up and 1 left. And that will map out the other side there. So this is B. This one was A. And I will do C in green. At least that was my plan. And the equation for C is y equals 5 over 2x minus 9. Okay, so the slope is 5 over 2. The y-intercept is negative 9. So you just go and find negative 9 on the y-axis, and then from there we are going to go up 5, 2 to the right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2 to the right. All right, and there's graph C. Okay, so that's how you graph slope-intercept form. Now, we need to talk about two special cases of lines. If there is no x term, y equals 3. In this case, y is always 3. Okay, so by graphing, we can see if y is always 3, guys, if the y-coordinate is always 3, this is what happens. Your y height is always 3, regardless of what x is. And look what it makes. It makes a horizontal line with a height of 3. If there's no y term, x equals -2. In this case, x is always -2. So by graphing, we can see if the x coordinate is always -2, this is how I would stay. The x coordinate is always -2, regardless of what y does. And it makes a vertical line. Okay, so y equals c produces a horizontal line. And so x equals c produces a vertical line. And finally, we can talk about the domain, possible x values, and the range, the possible y values of the lines. In the two examples above, state the domain and range. And for this one, let this be y, the y equals 3 line. The domain is all real. X could be any value, but the range, the possible y values, y was always equal to 3. And was this a function? Yes. We can talk more about that later. For x equals -2, what are the possible x values for that? X is always equal to -2, so the domain is -2. The graph went up and down forever like this, so it covered all the y values. So the range was all real. And is a vertical line a function? No. All right, in example 2, they want us to graph the following lines on the grid. In A, y is by itself. We have y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. So the m, the slope, is -2, which is sitting over a secret 1. And b, the y-intercept, is -2. Okay, so the line starts here, touches the y-axis at -2, and then the slope is rise over run. We have to rise -2 and run 1, so that's down 2, 1 to the right, down 2, 1 to the right. And going back the other way, it's up 2, 1 left, up 2, 1 left. So I'll go up 2, 1 left, up 2, 1 left, up 2, 1 left. Okay, so that is graph A. Letter B, we have y equals 3x plus 8. That's y equals mx plus b. The slope is 3. B, the y-intercept, is 8. So we would go y-intercept of 8 and the slope is 3. 1, 2, 3 up, 1 to the right. And then it's going to keep going that way. So to get the other points the other way, it's down 3, 1 left. 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 Okay, so there's letter B. Letter C, let's do in green. We have 2x minus 4y plus 4 equals 0. And we want to get y by itself, so subtract 2x, subtract 4. Negative 4y equals negative 2x minus 6. Sorry, minus 4. Divide both sides by negative 4. And we end up getting y equals negative 2 over negative 4 is 1/2 in lowest terms, and plus 1. So there's the slope and there's the y-intercept. So I do a y-intercept at 1, and the slope is 1 over 2, so up 1, 2 to the right. Down 1, 2 left. And there's graph C. Okay, let's check out letter D here. It is 5x plus 5y equals 0. I need to get y by itself, so subtract 5x. And we get 5y equals negative 5x. Divide both sides by 5, and we are going to get y equals negative x, which you could write as negative 1x, and then there's no plus b here, so it must be plus 0. So here is the slope, the negative 1, b, the y-intercept, is 0. And negative 1 as a fraction is negative 1 over 1. Oops. Okay, so b, the y-intercept, was at 0, so that's where it touches the y-axis, and then we have a negative 1 over 1 slope, which means down 1, 1 to the right, down 1, 1 to the right, down 1, 1 to the right, and so on. Up 1, 1 left to go the other way. And that is letter D. And let's see if I can maybe get try this purple here. Okay, so for letter E, we've got x equals negative 7. That means that x equals negative 7 all the time, regardless of what y is. So there's letter E. And I'm going to do F in this purpley pink as well. Y equals 2. Y equals 2 all the time would be a line like that. That's letter F. Okay, and let's finally finish off with letter G. Maybe I'll try this orange here. It didn't change it. Okay, letter G, we have 3x plus 2y equals 5. And if I put this in slope-intercept form, get y by itself, here's what we will get. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. Okay, and so we get a slope of negative 3 over 2, but the y-intercept is 5 over 2, which is 2.5. Okay, so it's not the easiest to use decimals on the grid. In this case, it's not too bad because it's just 2.5. Okay, but if you want to get more whole number points, what you do in a case like this, guys, is we can use this slope, but rather than using that y-intercept, what we will do is go back to the equation and try to find some other point that works for x and y. So like 3 times something plus 2 times something equals 5. See if you can find an xy pair that works, that's whole numbers, and it would be a nicer point to use. Like, for example, if I were to put 1 in for x and 1 in for y, that would work, right? Because 3 times 1 plus 2 times 1 does equal 5. So that would just be 3 plus 2. So we'll use the point 1, 1 instead, which is right over here. And then we can use that slope that we got. What was it? Negative 3 over 2. So I'll go back here. You just start at your 1, 1 point and go 1, 2, 3 down, 2 to the right. 1, 2, 3 down, 2 to the right. 3 down, 2 to the right. And the other way, it is 1, 2, 3 up, 2 left. 3 up, 2 left. And there's letter G. All right, there you go, everybody. And this example here is just working backwards. You just find the y-intercept and then find the slope and write it in y equals mx plus b form. Maybe I could just do letter A for you. Y equals mx plus b. The b is right there at positive 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have to find the slope. So it looks to me like it is, if we were to go to this point, here's what you have. A run of 3 and a rise of negative 2. Right, and if we did that again, you would see over here, right? Rise negative 2, run 3. So rise over run is going to be negative 2/3 times x. Negative 2/3 x plus 5. And that would be the equation of our line. And you can see how that slope is working out. Okay, and we would just do that with the rest of them. Although look at letter D. D is a horizontal line. It is going to be y equals something, and it's 1, 2, 3 on the y-axis. You can see that that's at a height of 3 all the time. Okay, so that's what you would do for this example. Okay, so I think we'll end it there, guys. Here is the assignment as usual, so you can try these questions, and I think there are answers at the end. Yes, there's the answer key, and I can likely do a video for you soon. Okay, there you go, everybody. I will talk to you again soon.